Hello and welcome back to Water Moon Cards. My name is Luna and we're doing the VR to Coyote Tarot's video, Tarot Reintroductions. So I want to thank her and again thank Laura from Aquamarine 18 for their videos and inspiring me and giving me a way, a structure for reintroducing myself in this channel. Our part 3 has to do with your practice as a tarot reader. And the first question is, what does your tarot practice look like? And Coyote Tarot suggests, is it daily? Where do you read tarot? What tools do you use? When do you turn to the cards for answers? So it's a multi-layered thing. I definitely am not a daily reader. I only approach tarot when I have a question, although the last couple of years, the journal that I use has a blank page to start off every month. And so I've been making myself sit down and do a tarot reading around the beginning of each month just to kind of make sure that I'm not neglecting it altogether. I don't consider tarot a spiritual or sacred endeavor for myself. Obviously, it is whatever it is for you, so I'm not commenting on that. But it is a useful introspection tool, and you do get rusty if you don't do it. So I think there's value in doing it regularly. And I do enjoy doing it. It's just carving out the time to kind of quiet my mind and concentrate. I actually really prefer reading for others over reading for myself, but reading for myself has been really powerful and good over the last couple of years, so I do that. So even though I don't practice daily, I do kind of always follow the same routine when I do a reading for myself. I read at this table. I'm kind of a klutz, and I don't want to be bending or dropping cards or spilling things. I don't want to read in bed or read on the couch or that kind of thing. I like to have a flat surface to lay out my cards. And to prepare for reading, I used to go through this whole ritual because I read about, having to do something in a book, but then I realized that was just what one person's idea of a tarot reading was. And really, for me, it's just, I like to wash my hands because I don't want to get oil and grime on my cards. I want to limit that as much as possible. So I do thoroughly wash and dry my hands. And then I just like to sit with the deck in front of me out of the box for a couple of minutes and just meditate, quiet my mind down. I tend not to read when I'm really agitated because I feel like that is the wrong kind of energy. You're trying to get in touch with your inner wisdom. And so just quieting down and then really clearly trying to formulate some kind of a question in my mind. It may not even be a very specific question, but it needs to be, what am I trying to understand out of this reading? What does the end result look like in terms of an answer that I'm going to get? Again, if you do that, then you're going to be less likely to get an answer that doesn't make any sense or is vague. So that's my process for doing a tarot reading. And I'm kind of the same way when I read for others. I tell them, let's just be quiet for a minute. Let's put our cell phone in our bag. Let's take a deep breath and really think about your question. And why don't you think about your question while I shuffle the cards and I lay them out and, just go from that place of being really centered. I wanted to add in here a question that was not in the original prompts, but do you link tarot with something else, your spiritual practice, the time of year, a moon phase, or anything like that? And again, I used to try to draw cards on specific days of the year or specific auspicious times, but I don't do that anymore. I really just do it when I have questions. And I don't link tarot directly with my spiritual practice, although it is a support. So what I mean by that is, I've seen a lot of people who use tarot as part of their spiritual practice. It's a tool for maybe getting in touch with a specific divinity or for channeling messages from some specific entity. It might even be used in spell work or that kind of thing. Since I don't do spell work, I don't consider myself part of witchcraft. I don't think tarot is inherently part of witchcraft. I think it is for some people, and that's fine, but I don't think it's inherently that. And I don't think you have to consider yourself a member of pagan, Wicca, Druid, whatnot community in order to practice tarot. I think you can be completely secular about it. But because I am a Buddhist, and really Buddhism is about applying the teachings to your life, you do that through self-reflection. It's the only way you can really apply them to your life. Or you see how when that person yelled at you at work, and you didn't immediately yell back at them, but you were just patient and quiet for a moment, how that sort of calmed the situation down, or it helped you choose your next words more carefully or things like that. So in that sense, I really find tarot very helpful because I often don't know what I'm feeling. And I know that sounds weird, but if you're a repressive type of personality, avoidant repressive like I am, you'll know what I'm talking about. Oftentimes it takes you a really long time to process feelings, to understand how a situation actually made you feel. And tarot readings can really help me with that self-reflection. Looking at cards on a table helps me be more objective and not go into, oh, I was so bad, I handled that poorly, I should have done this instead, and just go, okay, here's what happened. Here's the results of your actions. Here's how it affected you. Here's how it affected them. And, maybe here's how you could handle it differently in the future. And that's really important because when you do self-reflection, you can often trigger yourself and get mad at yourself. But getting angry at yourself also is not helpful. It's kind of a long answer, but I'd be curious how other people use tarot, what they kind of pair it with or how it supports them. So basically doing readings for myself, they could be as simple as, how can I have a more interesting, stimulating conversation at this dinner party we're about to host? But it could also be something a lot deeper and related to my spiritual practice, and then journaling about it, and then trying to apply the lessons there, and then reflecting on that, etc. That's one big way that I use tarot. And question 14, which I sort of touched on there, what does a typical tarot reading look like with or for you? So when I'm reading for other people, it's often a conversation, and I tell them that up front. I've had people come sit at my table who just I'm here for my tarot reading, and they just sit down with a blank face, closed arms, or very closed off body language. And I don't know what they expect me to do with that, but I tell them, I don't claim to be psychic. I'm here to explore with you what's going on. So if you won't give me any information, I can't read with you. So when I read with others, I won't let them shuffle the deck because I've learned the hard way that most people don't actually know how to shuffle a pack of cards, especially one that's kind of a weird shape like this. But I do always let them cut the deck or pick, if I'm going to be pick from these piles of cards or something, I'll let them choose which pile to pick from. So I want them to engage and have some agency with me because, again, I think that their choices do influence the reading. And I think that everybody is kind of tuned in a good reading. Everyone is actually tuned in, and their choices do affect the outcome of the reading. But also it gives them, again, it's like having them pay a little bit of money for the reading. It makes them feel more engaged, and it makes them actually more interested in the outcome and what I'm trying to say. So I think it's beneficial that way. And then I'll lay out the cards, take a moment. I try to kind of digest everything and look both at the big picture and then look for a few details. And sometimes I'll give them kind of a rough overview, and then I'll ask them what's standing out to them, or what do they have questions about. Or I'll go into a little more detail and I'll say, what was hitting for you with that? What made sense? Or I'll say a few things, and then I'll say, is this making sense to you? And get some guidance that way, because I don't want to go on some 10-minute tangent and then have them be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even have a mother-in-law, to be mad at. I don't want to be off track that way. That has seemed to work well. I've started to feel a lot more confident reading for strangers, which can always be difficult. Helping them, people are often nervous when they come to you for reading, so helping them not be nervous, helping them understand what's going to happen before it does, so that the whole process isn't just some weird whirlwind mystery to them. Hey, here's my name, and what's your name, and here's what we're going to do today, and here's how it's going to go. That seems to help people kind of relax and get more into the reading. And then the more they get into it, the more I can kind of delve into it too, and give them a more clear, answer to their question. That's my tarot practice. That's part 3. And I invite you to join me for the next part 4, the final piece of this tag. And thanks again for joining me.